True strength isn't in shouting or flaunting muscles. It's the silence in the storm, the calm when others panic, the steady gaze that makes you unshakable. In a world full of chaos and emotionally charged reactions, the one who remains grounded within is the most formidable. Today's video will show you how to build a mind as solid as stone, not to intimidate anyone, but to become the kind of person whose presence brings stability even before you speak a word. Rooted in Stoic principles, we'll explore how to stop getting swept away by emotional reactions, eliminate the habits that quietly weaken you, and build a disciplined lifestyle that earns respect not through outward power, but from inner strength. This isn't an easy path, but it's the only one if you seek true freedom. Freedom from emotions, from circumstances, and from the opinions of others. 1. Shifting perspective, from craving comfort to forging resilience. We all grow up in a world that silently conditions us to believe. If we try hard, if we're good people, if we give it our all, life will be easy. Things will go smoothly, and happiness will follow. It's a sweet promise, but it's a false one. Stoicism doesn't call it hope, it calls it illusion. Because the world doesn't bend to your emotions, doesn't adjust to your desires, and is under no obligation to make you comfortable. The world is neither kind nor cruel, it simply is. And your expectation that life should be easy is the root of disappointment, suffering, and panic when hardship strikes. The Stoic doesn't begin their journey by becoming stronger, but by discarding the illusion that life is supposed to be fair. They don't believe they're entitled to ease. Instead, they train their minds to welcome adversity as inevitable and essential for growth. This shift in thinking doesn't come from books or moral advice, but from lived experience. When plans collapse despite your best effort, when the person you trust most turns away, when pain arrives without warning. In those moments, the ordinary person asks, "Why is this happening to me?" While the Stoic asks, "What is this trying to forge in me?" The problem isn't the circumstance, it's your interpretation of it. You're not hurt by what happens. You're hurt by your belief that it shouldn't have happened. You don't lose your temper because someone insulted you. You lose it because you think you deserve to be respected. These beliefs are what make you fragile when life doesn't go your way. And only when you stop viewing the world through the lens of desire and begin seeing it through the clarity of reality, do you begin to mature. Transformation doesn't start by changing your circumstances. It starts by changing how you see them. A strong mind isn't formed when things are calm, but through resistance, through silence, in the moment you want to give up, but choose not to. When you stop demanding the world to be better and start focusing on becoming stronger, you're no longer ruled by emotions, by the external, or by unrealistic expectations. You become independent. You begin to understand that strength doesn't come from victory, but from not breaking when you lose, not panicking when rejected, not acting out when insulted. That's resilience, something no one can give you but yourself. And to gain that, you must accept a hard truth. Maturity means letting go of old beliefs that you will be treated fairly, that life will go smoothly if you live well, that your emotions should be honored. When you dare to release those expectations, you don't become numb, you become less fragile. You don't live coldly, you live with stability. You don't grow harsh, you grow calm. Your mind is no longer a small boat tossed by every wave, but an anchor holding firm no matter how hard life rains, howls, or shakes. Shifting your mindset from craving ease to cultivating grit is the first and most vital step if you wish to build a mind that others tread carefully around. Not because you've grown harsh or aggressive, but because you're no longer easy to shake. Your silence will carry weight. Your calm will force others to reflect, and in that, you'll no longer need to prove anything. Your presence will say it all. 2. Habits you must let go of to grow. A strong mind isn't built from fleeting inspiration or lofty thoughts, but by clearing away the things that quietly weaken you each day. Some habits may seem harmless at first glance, but over time, they erode your inner strength, dull your will, and trap you in a loop of stagnation. If you've ever wondered why you feel stuck despite having great potential, the answer often lies in the small things you repeat daily without asking, "Am I limiting myself?" The first habit you must release is complaining. Complaining is like a mild sedative for the mind. It makes you feel better in the moment, but causes long-term harm. Every time you whine about work, the weather, co-workers, or anything outside your control, you send a clear message to your brain. I'm powerless. I can't control anything. And when that message is repeated long enough, it stops being words and becomes a silent belief. You start to see life through the lens of a victim, waiting for change to come from the outside instead of acting from within. Those with resilient minds don't choose blame or whining. They take action when change is possible, or remain silent and let go when it isn't. Everything in between is just wasted energy. Another dangerous habit is constantly seeking comfort. We're tempted by the soft chair, the cool room, the quick meal, the glowing screen, and the easy life. But comfort is a sweet trap. It doesn't come like a storm, it seeps in slowly, like water soaking into stone. You skip a workout because you're tired. Postpone a tough decision out of fear. Stay silent when you should speak up to avoid conflict. These seemingly minor choices begin to form an internal message. I choose not to grow. And if you keep choosing not to grow, one day you'll wake up and realize you've lost yourself without even noticing. Stoics don't resist comfort, but they don't let it paralyze their will. They deliberately choose difficulty each day as a form of inner training to remind themselves that growth doesn't come from convenience, but from friction, from discomfort, and from timely exhaustion. The third habit to let go of is making excuses. We're skilled at justifying delay with reasons that sound perfectly valid. I'm busy. I'm not ready. I'm not that kind of person. But excuses, no matter how nicely packaged, are just avoidance. They're the elegant coat of fear, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of change. The issue isn't your situation, it's your refusal to take responsibility for yourself. The strong-minded don't make excuses. They don't wait for motivation to act. They need a clear reason to move, and that reason is often, I don't want to live a life ruled by fear. The final habit, seemingly small but deeply dangerous, the craving for acceptance. We're social creatures, so wanting recognition is natural. But when your life depends on how others see you, you stop living honestly. You bend your boundaries, hesitate in crucial decisions, and lose your inner voice just to be liked. The Stoic knows the only approval that matters is from one's own conscience. Epictetus once said, if you want to improve yourself, be willing to be seen as foolish and naive. That's the price of becoming yourself, a steep price, but one worth paying. When you dare to let go of these habits, you won't feel empty. You'll feel lighter, as if you've finally removed a backpack you've worn the wrong way for years. You don't need to add something new to become stronger. You just need to subtract what's been holding you down. Less complaining, less comfort-seeking, less excuse-making, less craving for approval. And then you'll begin to uncover the powerful version of yourself that's been buried inside all along. 3. Reframing failure like a Stoic. We're taught how to pursue success, how to plan, set goals, and take action, but rarely does anyone teach us how to fail. In modern society, failure is seen as a sign of weakness, something shameful to hide or move past as quickly as possible. But the Stoic sees failure differently. To them, failure isn't a trap to avoid, but a map it reveals where you don't yet understand yourself, where you're still weak, and the lessons you'd never learn without falling. When someone fails, the instinctive response is to blame, withdraw, or run from emotion. But the Stoic does none of that. They stop and look directly at failure, as if looking into a mirror. Not to self-criticize, nor to justify, but to listen for the most important question: what is this trying to teach me? A strong mind isn't built by a string of victories, but by the ability to stand firm after each fall, rising with greater calm and deeper self-understanding. For the Stoic, failure isn't an end. It's the beginning of a new chapter where courage is tested, dignity is measured, and reason is forged. The way you view failure determines the trajectory of your growth. If you see it as proof that you're not good enough, you'll live in shame. If you use it to confirm that others were right to doubt you, you'll always live under their judgment. But if you see failure as a necessary part of growing, you'll no longer fear it. You'll learn to welcome every bruise, every misstep, every rejection as a natural part of forging a stronger mind. Sarah Blakely, the youngest self-made female billionaire, once shared that her father used to ask her every day, "What did you fail at today?" Not to diminish her, but to teach her that failure isn't shameful. It's proof she was trying, stepping outside her comfort zone. The Stoic trains in much the same way. They don't dodge failure, they seek out chances to confront it, knowing it's in those very moments that true strength is formed. The issue isn't how many times you fail, it's what you learn from each one. When a Stoic loses a job, they don't blame the boss or sink into resentment. They treat it as a cue to adjust their skills, attitude, or even their path. When betrayed, they don't dwell in bitterness, they learn who deserves trust, and more importantly, how not to let someone else's actions pollute their own mind. And when their greatest dream collapses, they don't see it as the end, but as a test. Do they have the will to rebuild from scratch, with a heart that has hurt but never lost its hunger? Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "Hardship shows us who we are. Not success, not praise, not victory, but failure lays bare your true self. It strips away the surface, forcing you to face your bare essence. And only when you're willing to stare into that without flinching, without blame, without self-pity, do you begin the true rebuilding, not with hollow hopes, but with clarity and earned strength." And if you're carrying a failure you haven't dared to face, write it down. Don't judge. Don't justify. Look at it the way a blacksmith sees the metal that must be forged. Then, each day, act as if you are reforging yourself. Every strike of the hammer, every flare of heat, every crack has a purpose. And if you do this long enough, one day that very failure will be the reason others admire your composure and your quiet power. 4. Daily discipline. Not to impress, but to truly exist. Once you understand that the world promises nothing, that failure is inevitable, and that resilience doesn't come from theory, the next step is to begin training. Not training to prove to others that you're strong, nor to earn admiration from the outside. Mental training in the spirit of Stoicism is so that you can exist in the truest sense, not driven by emotion, not subdued by circumstance, not pushed off balance by the chaos of the world. Training the mind is a quiet, repetitive process, no glamour, no audience, no need for praise. It begins with small, seemingly insignificant acts that carry deep impact. Take cold showers in the morning, not to become extraordinary, but because it's the first test of the day. Will you choose temporary comfort or the deliberate act of mastering sensation? When you step into cold water despite your body's protest, you are training yourself a small act, but a reminder that you don't live to indulge instinct, but to rise above it. The body and the mind are deeply connected. A weak body can hardly support a strong mind. So daily physical movement, whether walking, running, lifting weights, or doing simple exercises, isn't just about fitness. It's a statement. I don't wait for motivation. I act because it's right. You don't have to be an athlete, but you do have to keep your word to yourself. Ask yourself, when was the last time you said, "I'll do it," and actually did? Inner strength is built in those moments when you keep your promises to yourself, especially when no one's watching and no reward awaits. Training doesn't only happen through physical action, it lives in stillness too. Each day, spend a few minutes sitting in silence, no phone, no noise, no distractions, just you, with yourself. You might call it meditation, mindfulness, or simply quiet. But this is your time to return to your center. One who's never observed their emotions will never master them. One who's never practiced being alone will lose themselves in a crowd. That daily silence is a lesson to resist being swept away by chaos, so that when the winds of life rise, your roots remain deep. Beyond the physical and the quiet, there's another vital form of training: intentional action. Each day, do one hard thing. Not to prove anything, but to expand your limits. It might be waking up with the alarm, sending that uncomfortable email you've delayed, saying no to an invite when you know you should, or learning a skill that makes you feel clumsy. These small actions, repeated daily, become the bricks of resilience. Every time you choose what's difficult over what's easy, you stretch your tolerance, grow your strength, and remind yourself that maturity lies not in words, but in deeds. Epictetus once said, "No one is free who has not mastered himself." And that mastery doesn't arrive overnight. It isn't something you gain from a single effort. It's the result of hundreds of daily choices between ease and effort, familiarity and challenge, emotion and reason. Each time you choose well, you lay another solid stone into the foundation of your mind. And eventually, you won't need to pretend to be strong. You will simply be strong. Not for show, but as a way of existing in clarity, composure, and full self-possession. 5. Building an unshakable mind. There is a kind of strength that is not loud, not showy, not in need of validation, yet makes others tread carefully from the first glance. That is an unshakable mind. Not someone without emotion, not someone without suffering, but someone who stays steady through suffering, keeps reason when emotion flares, and holds to themselves when everything else is collapsing. This isn't innate talent or divine gift. It's the outcome of long, quiet, persistent training, where every moment of life is a real-world test of inner resilience. An unshakable mind is not born when life is smooth, but formed in the moments when you want to rage but choose silence, want to quit but keep going, want to retaliate but choose to let go. It's when you're stuck in traffic during rush hour, receive a scolding email from your boss, a text that pierces your chest, and instead of letting yourself spiral into negativity, you take a deep breath, pause instead of reacting, observe, and respond with clarity. That moment unseen, uncelebrated, is a massive step in building inner strength. Because the person who cannot be shaken is the one who is not easily dragged into impulsive reactions. A steady mind is a refuge in the storm. When the world outside is chaotic, You need somewhere to return, but if you haven't built a solid inner house, you'll constantly search for something to cling to. Every time you lose your temper, lash out, overreact, you swing the door wide open for the outside world to take control of your mind. The Stoic understands that true power lies in mastering the inside, not in mastering external events. They don't try to control the current. They learn to steady the oars, to keep balance even as waves batter the hull. To build an unshakable mind, you must practice something that seems simple but is incredibly difficult. Do not react immediately. Create a pause between stimulus and response. Someone cuts in line. Don't curse. Someone insults you. Don't retaliate. Bad news hits. Don't panic. Pause, breathe, and ask, will this reaction help? Is there a wiser response I can choose instead? That pause is what separates the controlled from the reactive. And when you repeat this often enough, it becomes a new instinct, one that doesn't respond from emotion, but from reason. Calmness is not indifference. It's clarity born from deep self-awareness. The Stoic is not someone who never gets angry, sad, or hurt, but someone who acknowledges those emotions without letting them take the wheel. They observe emotions like clouds drifting across the sky, real but not permanent. That's what allows them to stand firm when others lose direction, stay rational when others panic. A mind like that doesn't need to shout to be respected, doesn't need to argue to be right. Its inner stability becomes a quiet force that commands attention, even caution. You can begin building this kind of mind in the smallest of moments. When you spill coffee on your shirt, when a loved one misunderstands you, when work gets tough. Every time you choose calm over a harsh reaction, you place another brick in the foundation of your inner life. Every time you let go of a petty argument to preserve greater peace, you reinforce your stability. And gradually, you'll notice that you're no longer easily triggered, no longer pulled into unnecessary battles, no longer swayed by someone else's emotional storm. An unshakable mind doesn't mean becoming numb. It means becoming strong enough to feel everything without being overwhelmed by anything. When others lose themselves in the storm, you still know your direction. When the world falls apart around you, you still know what to do next. That consistency, not from appearance, but from inner stillness, is true strength. A stillness so profound others cannot explain it, and because they can't explain it, they cannot shake it. 6. Discipline. The foundation of any lasting change. We often chase motivation, watch an inspiring video, read a life-changing book, hear a quote that wakes us up, then believe that's all it takes to begin again. But inspiration is like wind. It comes suddenly, excites you briefly, then disappears without a trace once life returns to its usual pressures. You can't expect a steady life if its foundation is built on fleeting emotions. Only discipline keeps you standing, keeps you acting, keeps you moving forward even when you no longer feel like it. Discipline is not harshness, nor is it self-imposed extremism. It's loyalty to the best version of yourself, a steady commitment to what you know is right, even when your emotions say otherwise. The Stoic knows emotions are variables, but action must be constant. There are days when you wake up tired, discouraged, when everything feels pointless. But if you've set a principle like, I will train rain or shine, I will write 500 words each morning, whether I feel like it or not. Then discipline becomes the anchor that keeps you from drifting on momentary moods. Ordinary people act when they feel like it. The disciplined act because they know it's necessary. You can always tell who is disciplined not by their words, but by how they live. They don't announce they're changing, don't brag about future plans, don't talk endlessly about goals. They work quietly, go to the gym while you snooze, write while others scroll, read while crowds chase entertainment, learn new skills while most say, "I don't have time." That quiet repetition is what sets them apart. And when results come, outsiders say they're lucky, without seeing the long stretch of days with no applause, no recognition, just commitment to action. Discipline is also about refusal. Refusing what's easy, refusing small temptations, refusing to indulge yourself. When you refuse to sleep in for 15 more minutes and wake on time, refuse the fast food and cook something healthy, refuse to buy what you don't need and save for what truly matters. You're building self-mastery. It's uncomfortable, tiring, but it's in those moments that you separate yourself from the crowd. Because most people choose immediate comfort, trading the future for a few easy minutes. The disciplined choose the opposite. They accept difficulty now to gain freedom later. The truth is, discipline isn't something you either have or don't. It's something you train. It doesn't come from special willpower, but from clear systems. A person who wants to write a book doesn't need inspiration. They need a daily writing schedule. A person who wants to be fit doesn't need an expensive gym. They need consistent training and mindful eating. A person who wants financial stability doesn't need luck. They need disciplined spending and the ability to say no to trivial pleasures. Any change without discipline as its foundation is temporary. It will soon be swept away by laziness, fatigue, and procrastination that are always waiting to return. The Stoic doesn't teach us to be cold or rigid. They reveal a simple truth. If you don't master yourself, you'll be mastered by circumstances. If you don't choose what's right each day, life will default to what's easy and ultimately disappointing. And if you want to become someone truly steady, someone not swayed by emotion, not beaten by exhaustion, not dragged by the world, then you cannot avoid the path of discipline. It's not an easy road, but it's the only one that leads to a version of yourself you can look back on with pride. 7. Mastering emotions in times of trial. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean you no longer feel them, nor does it mean living like an unfeeling machine. On the contrary, one who masters emotion feels everything clearly and deeply, but does not let any emotion take control of their behavior. It is someone who can be angry without being impulsive, sad without losing direction, hurt without losing dignity or kindness. And above all, someone who remains calm precisely when others lose control. This is the kind of inner strength that Stoicism upholds silent but deeply respected. Emotions are not the enemy. They are signals, natural human responses to life. But when you are dragged by emotion, when you react without thinking, say words you regret, or do things you can't take back, then you're no longer steering your life. You are simply being driven by anger, by hurt, by fear, or pride. The Stoic understands this well, and so they train daily to stand still in the storm without letting the mind be swept away. They don't deny emotion, but they don't let emotion rule their actions either. When someone insults you, your first reflex is to fight back, to speak up, to defend your honor, to prove you're right. But in that moment, if you can pause, take a breath, remain silent, and respond only when your mind has cooled, that is strength. No one judges you for not reacting right away, but that immediate reaction will define who you are in their eyes and in your own. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Emotional mastery matters most in moments of trial, when work falls apart, when you're misunderstood, when you're betrayed, when your expectations collapse. In those times, emotions will surge, that is inevitable. But what you can choose is whether emotion will lead or reason. A strong mind is not one that never wavers, but one that regains balance after every shake. And the more turbulent the storm, the more valuable your calm becomes. Think back to the last time you reacted emotionally. Maybe you said something that hurt someone, gave up on something important out of frustration, or ruined a relationship in a burst of anger. And later, when emotions settled, you felt regret. The Stoic trains not to fall into that loop. They remind themselves that even a right action taken in anger is still wrong, and a true word spoken with contempt still wounds. So they don't act the moment emotion flares. They watch, they wait, and they act only when reason returns to the driver's seat. The practice of emotional mastery begins with small moments. When someone cuts in line, when another driver swerves recklessly, when a message sparks the urge to argue. In those moments, train yourself to pause for 5 seconds, breathe, and ask, if I react emotionally, what do I gain? And if I respond with reason, how will the outcome change? Ask this question often enough, and change will begin. And as your reactions change, so will the results. Not because the situation changed, but because you did. You became someone no longer letting others decide your mood. Someone who masters emotion is not easily manipulated. They are not provoked by insult, not swayed by praise or blame, not pulled into meaningless battles. That is why others tread carefully around them, not because they're threatening, but because they're grounded. Not because they argue well, but because they don't need to argue. And that very steadiness becomes a silent kind of strength that no one can ignore. I used to think that strength was something that needed to be proven through praise, through achievements, through the recognition of others. But then I realized that what makes someone truly formidable isn't external success, but the ability to remain calm inside when everything around them is falling apart. I used to react impulsively, used to lose my peace over a single comment, a fleeting situation, a passing feeling. And after each of those moments, it became clearer to me that the greatest enemy wasn't anyone else, it was the uncontrolled version of myself. From then on, I began to change not through grand decisions, but through practicing silence, discipline, and the ability to detach from momentary emotion. Over time, I came to understand that a steady mind isn't meant to impress anyone, but to allow you to live true to your values in any circumstance. That is the deepest kind of freedom, and it's something I would never trade for anything else. If something in this video spoke to you, give yourself a chance to begin again, not to become someone else, but to return to the best version of who you are. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss future content. Every step you take, no matter how small, is shaping a stronger version of you. And that quiet strength over time will make the world pause in silence as you walk by. See you in the next video.